We'll be posting this as soon as we get to a stopping point. For the Alice City Council, we will continue the Pledge of Allegiance, and Pastor Dale White of First United Methodist. Mr. John Lemon, please.
Let us pray. Father God, we come before you acknowledging your position as creator of the universe, the source from which all authority is derived. And Lord, we thank you for the opportunities that you give us. When this country was created, it was upon your protection that the founding fathers relied, pledging to one another their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor, recognizing their position not as rulers of the new nation, but as servants of. Tonight we ask your blessing on these servants of the people as they come together to serve the people of Alice. We ask that your Spirit would guide the discussion and that your sovereign will would guide the decisions made here tonight. Lord, we lift all these prayers up in the power of your Spirit and in the name of your most precious Son, Jesus the Christ. Amen.
Everybody face the flag, please.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you both. All right, moving on to item number 2, citizen comments and public announcements. We do have one citizen comment, so I'm going to read this disclaimer real quick. And sorry, but I need my cheaters. Give me a second here. A citizen who has a request for city services or any other items of concern which cannot be approved or otherwise resolved by the city manager may choose to address the city council. If you wish to address the city council, please follow the following suggestions below. Citizens who wish to address the city council about items on the agenda which are scheduled for council action will have 3 minutes to express their position. Please indicate on the reverse side of the agenda item of which you wish to comment. All presentations and discussions should be directed to the City Council and all questions to the Mayor. Any complaints and or discussion about individuals, personnel, council members, city staff, or other persons would be out of order and will not be heard by the City Council at this time. Charges or complaints about specific individuals shall be presented in writing to the City Manager. All complaints of this nature must be signed and dated by the individual filing the complaint and will be addressed pursuant to Alice personnel policies. In the essence of time, which we only have one, so in the essence of time, presentations by individuals shall be limited to 3 minutes. Any individual speaker may be extended by an additional 3 minutes with approval of the majority of the council. There shall be a cumulative limit of 15 minutes allotted to any regular scheduled or special council meeting. Although council cannot take specific action on any citizen comments or topics due to legal requirements, they will hear the topic and the council may, 1, have the item placed on a future agenda for action, 2, refer it to a board, commission, or committee, or refer the item to the staff for study or conclusion. All speakers must have signed up 15 minutes prior to the meeting, and at this time we do have one speaker, Miss Sandra Bowen. If you can please come forward.
Yes.
I'm excited about this one.
I'm excited too. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. My name is Sandra Bowen. I work with LJA Engineering, which was formerly Coim, Rimmett, and Gutierrez Engineering, a firm that has been here at least over 60 years. And we are cleaning house and kind of getting everything digital and everything. And we came across a set of plans for the city, the Alice Airport. And the excitement is it's from 1957. And we would like to donate this to the city's library, so y'all can have it in your hands and continue to keep it. And just to show you how old this is, real quick, it's kind of falling a little bit apart. I did try to copy it, and it's like, I didn't even want to bother. Sorry.
Wow.
But it is kind of falling apart, just a little bit.
Wow.
And it's in its original binding from back then, where they used the screws and that, so it's for y'all.
Well, thank you for that.
Thank you, and like I said, I'm with LJ Engineering, and we're here for the city, whatever y'all need.
Wow.
So let's put this back.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Move on to public announcements. Ms. Cynthia, anything? Mr. Burke? No. Melina? At this time, I have nothing but from myself, but as you noticed, the mayor was unable to attend today. She's off at a training. She asked me, she sent a letter in. I'm going to read her first little opening statement, and then there'll be more when we get to an item that she wishes to address also. So her simple statement so far is, good evening, council and everyone, for joining us today. First, allow me to apologize for my absence today. I am attending a yearly scheduled training for one of my businesses. The next portion of it, and there's more, but that's just, she wanted to welcome everybody and apologize for not being here, to come when we get to another agenda item here later. So I'll bring this back up. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 3, city manager report, including status of remaining available monies for street resurfacing and other work, and plans to proceed, and other relevant items. Mr. Esparza?
Yeah, Mayor Pro Tem, thank you. I just have one item on here, which is the balance of what we have on the street improvement fund. We have $298,000 left on that. The first project, we spent over $300,000. We were able to do 48 sections of roadway. We're estimating that this $298,000 can continue, will allow us to probably get about 25 to 35 sections of roadway completed. The other option with that, we're more than likely going to come forward with a plan on the streets to go ahead and do the additional chip sealing. And to give you an idea of if we wanted to do a road, depending of course on the length of the road, but let's say a road like Rose Drive or something that's that long, the 298 would not do enough to do a mill and overlay. Maybe a section of that could happen. So we're trying to figure out a best way to move forward on some of the roads that we need. But for the money that we have left in that, we feel kind of the best use would be for additional chip sealing. And we do have some plans that were put together on the ones that need some more seal coating and chip sealing, and we're going to probably act on those here in the next couple of months. And that's all I have for the street improvements.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to item number 4, consider and act upon approval of city council meetings for July 10, 2018 city council meeting.
And Mayor Pro Tem, we have, I think, did y'all get a new set of minutes on there? There were a few corrections we did, and mainly just some titling, but also on item number 10 from your packet, item number 10 and 11. We had combined them on the motion. We had 10 and 11 on the motion also, and they were actually acted on separately. And those were the main changes on there. And also the members present, we had left that off, but other than that, it's complete and accurate.
Council? Any questions, comments, discussion?
I have no question.
Take a motion?
I'll move for approval of the minutes as presented.
Second? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. All right, the ayes have it. Motion stands. All right, item number 5. Consider, move this so at least I'm facing forward, sorry. Consider act upon a resolution of the City Council of the City of Alice, Texas, authorizing budget allocation of hotel occupancy tax, hot funds, for the hotel occupancy tax, from the hotel occupancy tax reserve, permissible uses to the Hispanic Heritage Committee Incorporated for their 2018 Fiesta del Centro in accordance with the city ordinance number 2058.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Just talk.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem, thank you. We're gonna have Mr. Rogelio Cuellar with Hispanic Heritage going to come give you all a small presentation.
Thank you very much, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. Again, here I come before the city council to request the special funding to help support the Alice Hispanic Heritage Fiesta del Centro. This is an event, it's a family event. It's free to the public at no cost, and it's held here at City Hall Square. This will be our 24th annual event, and our committee, I'm here representing the committee, Hispanic Heritage Committee, Inc., and I am the current president of the nonprofit organization. And we're asking, we applied through the process that's been established by the city and the Chamber of Commerce, which is the first step to apply for the $1,800 to the Chamber of Commerce, and now we're on the second step, I believe, in requesting the additional funding up to $10,000. And I don't know if you have in front of you a copy of the things that we're requesting. There's 16 items, and mostly these are the items that have been requesting from past years, which is a street closure, the use of the City Hall parking lot, and we asked for the use of the first floor of the City Hall to have a Mexican Loteria bingo for seniors, and that's done on Saturday morning. Set up and take down of the portable fencing along the railroad tracks for safety. Of course, we asked for the water supply. I think there's quick connects along the fencing, and we asked that the water be turned on so we could have use of the water. We asked that we use the electrical outlets that the city does own, and we use that for the vendors on the grounds. And then we asked, of course, for any security lighting, and we've worked with the city before and asking, I think there's 2 and sometimes there's 1, and we understand that sometimes they may be used. So we've been always able to get others donated by local companies. So whatever you have, we sure like to use. Any bleachers, I think in the past we've had up to 4, but whatever's available for people to sit down and set up in front of the stage. The trash containers, we do try to keep the grounds as clean as possible. We do hire a couple of individuals to be picking up trash during the day of the event, and then we also pay for all the cleaning on Saturday morning and then on Sunday morning. We make sure that all the grounds the area is cleaned, and we pay that out of our own funding. Of course, we ask for the trash bins, provide general sweeping of the Fiesta grounds prior to the event, and you have some kind of equipment that does the sweeping, and we ask that be done before. Block off the parking lots around the railroad from Cameron to Wright Streets to keep vehicles from parking during the 2-day event. Metal plates for bridging, and we've used that because on several occasions we've had a lot of rain during the event, and this really helps people cross over because the water really runs down the street behind us here. I think that it runs to where the manholes are, where the water goes into. So we ask for those 2 metal plates for people to walk over in case it rains. We do ask for the display to display or banner on the designated place that's been designated by the city to put up the event banner. And we also request that you allow us to sell alcoholic beverages, and that's how we come up with the additional monies to help pay for the entertainment for the event. We also rent a lot of canopies, chairs, tables from a local vendor that's really very costly but much needed because of the hot weather that we have during around September. We also ask that you designate a city employee that our designated person can work with in working out the things that we, that we can have. And we also, it'll be the point person with our point person to coordinate all the activities during the event. Basically, that's it. We're asking, if any funds are approved, of course, we understand that some of the expenses have to be absorbed by the city. So, we accept that. And then any balance remaining from any expenses that come out of the $10,000, any balance be paid directly to maybe one or two performers, and we'll provide contracts and 1099s for those. So we won't have none of the money will be used for any other activity other than for the stage and any costs that the city might want us, that may want to be passed on to us, and the remaining will be used for performers for the event.
Thank you.
Also, guys, if you note on here, the balance on the Fund 20 for this line item was budgeted at $41,000. There's what's been spent today is $34,555. That leaves, if we fund the $8,200, that's a shortage of $1,755 on that. The overage would be on the 41. However, there are other line items there that are unspent. One in particular, I believe, was like a small tools and machinery that was still unspent, that had like a 1781 balance, 1,781, which would cover this. And the last 3 months of the year, city manager is authorized to move from line item to line item within a fund, as long as there's money still allocated there. So it can still be covered on there, even though here it shows that it won't. It would just be a transfer down to the add another 1755 to the 41 from a different line item, but it would still be on the fund 20.
Council, any discussion, questions, comments? Cynthia, did you have something?
Yes.
Go right ahead.
Hi. I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
On here, I was reading, you presented a budget, and you presented a budget on advertisement. And also, there's, just wanted to know, it has a notation here about advertisement for radio, newspaper, and is purchased by Alice Chamber of Commerce for the Alice Hispanic. Is that something separate? Is that, how's that?
No, that's the first step of the process of $1,800. We've always used the total amount for advertisement. And that usually goes, we advertise locally at the local radio station. We also, this year we're going to advertise in KSAB 99.9 radio that has a large audience. And then we do some local newspaper also. And we might do another smaller radio station in Corpus, Magic I believe 104.9. So we try to utilize, with what we have, and $1,800, and then we spend a little bit more from our own money to be able to use all those media sources to advertise the event.
And council, I've kind of opened it to the floor, so if anything pops in your head, go ahead and ask away. So, I did want to say, thanks for coming out. I know that you've been holding this event for how long now?
This will be our 24th year.
24th year. It's a staple of our community, so thank you for your continued support in the city and moving forward.
Well, thank you. We have a good committee that's committed, and I couldn't do it by myself. So we have a committee of almost 30 people, that come out and help and put on this event.
Thank you. And then the next one is kind of aimed towards Michael and us and the council as a whole. I'm not going to get into this too deep, but something that we're seeing right now, we didn't limit our exposure, is why in the past when it was brought up that maybe we needed to readdress this. I'd like for us to to really look into, like we said, this is a very baby agenda, not agenda, but an ordinance that let's get together and get some people involved on trying to resolve how we can limit our exposure in something like this, where we're not having to make these shifts within a single fund, which is capable of doing without any kind of ordinance or what have you. But let's limit our exposure moving forward, and because it's events, I think, like this one and several others that we need to consider as a whole. So, anybody else have anything? Go
I
ahead.
just would like to ask, for the future, if we do fund or provide hot funds on this, if you would consider expanding the exposure for the festival, only so to hopefully draw people from other,
We would love to, it's just the finances
Yes.
to
Oh, yeah.
promote it, more than we would like. But yes, we sure like to work on that. It does bring, people from the coastal Bend area, around San Antonio, Houston, the valley. It creates overnight stays. The committee does, we rent up to maybe 6 to 8 rooms, depending on who we need to rent rooms for. But it brings in a lot of people into the community, and it's, at one time, we're even using television as a source of advertisement, but it's gotten very costly,
yes.
very costly.
Now, when you say the 6 to 8 rooms, that's just your investment
yeah.
in making sure that we have the entertainment and so forth. That's not saying the patrons that actually attend
No.
from surrounding areas. Okay.
That's just the committee, what
Okay.
we rent.
Okay. Council?
A line item on security. Is that included in one of these other line items, or?
The committee does pay for their own security, and in the past, we've always used local law enforcement, and we either 4 or 6, Friday and Saturday, both nights.
No further discussion?
I don't-
I'll accept the motion.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Robert.
Sure. I'd like to motion authorizing budget allocation of hotel occupancy tax funds from the Hotel Occupancy Tax Reserve for permissible uses to the Hispanic Heritage Committee Incorporated for the 2018 Fiesta del Centro in accordance with City Ordinance Number 2058
In the sum of
in the sum of
$8,200.
$8,200.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Motion stands as stated.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Shifting some things around here. All right, moving on to item number 6. Consider and act upon a resolution of the City of Alice adopting retirement criteria for employees who meet the eligibility for continuation of their medical and dental benefits through the age of 65 upon service retirement from the City of Alice, and whose combination of continuous years of service and age total a threshold as established by the City Council.
Mayor Pro Tem, I'm going to have our risk manager, Diana Lopez, present this item.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. B is passing out a set of handouts, and before we get to the handouts, I wanted to give some general information as to the criteria we have in place right now. So employees who are retiring from city service, meaning they're retiring under TMRS, have the benefit of continuing their medical and dental insurance based on a set of criteria. Historically, that criteria had been 90, meaning that when an employee's age plus consecutive years of service with the City of Alice equal or exceeds 90, and the employee retires under TMRS, the City of Alice will pay the employee-only portion of group medical, which is medical and dental insurance. The retiree has the option of continuing any dependent care at 100% their cost. In 2016, the criteria for Rule of 90 was changed to Rule of 85, meaning that their age plus years of service equal to or exceed 85. That rule was set to expire September 30th of 2017, and last year during budget discussions, the council extended the Rule of 85 to continue for this fiscal year. In HR and in risk, we're constantly looking and projecting and looking for trends that not only benefit the employee, but also looking for trends that if there is a benefit to the employee, what is the exposure to the city? So in looking forward with the budget and recognizing the high level of service our employees provide and the loyalty provided to our organization to be eligible to retire from the City of Alice, there are some employees that may benefit from a temporary reduction to the threshold of 85. For your consideration this evening is a resolution to amend the Rule of 85 to 80 for a period from August the 1st through September 30th. As administration, finance, the council, and the department heads work through budget for fiscal year 19, we will need to make some decisions to identify the true financial feasibility of establishing a threshold for continuation of this benefit, setting that criteria, and making sure that it's in the best interest of the organization. B handed out to you all 2 sheets. The first has at the top Rule of 85 projections. These are individuals that, through the end of 9/30/2018, currently meet the criteria for Rule of 85. There are 9 individuals on this sheet. The ones that are highlighted in orange are already age 65 or older, so there is no benefit to them. If you will flip to the next page, you will see an illustration of Rule of 80 projections, meaning if we, council was to determine this evening to temporarily lower that criteria to 80 through the end of 9/30/18, this is what we'd like to walk you through today. So the employees in yellow are already eligible under Rule of 85. The employees that are in orange are already age 65 or older and have no benefit to the criteria. So I'd like to focus to the employees that are in blue. And you'll notice that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of them. To the far right-hand side of your spreadsheet, you'll see number of months to Rule of 85, meaning this is the number of months these particular individuals would need to meet in order to get to 85. And you will notice that there are several who are under the 12-month mark, meaning that they are very close to meeting that rule. Third one in blue is 11 months away. As you move down to the next set, you have some at 9, at 6, and at 3. If council was to consider, and the recommendation to council this evening is approval of the resolution for a temporary reduction through the end of September, we are picking up an additional 257 months of these individuals. The liability spread over several years is approximately $128,000. It's important to note that the liability for fiscal year 2018 is essentially 2 months. It would be August and September, which is about $1,000 per employee. Not every employee on here is going to take the option, but we would like to offer the option, especially for those that are so close to that threshold. If the decision is made to raise it to 90, these individuals are probably going to have to wait a considerable longer period of time before they're eligible for this benefit. I'll open it up to any questions from the council. The positions that have been identified, some of them are critical, but there are measures in place and staff in place that it would not be anything that would be detrimental to the city, and the position would be filled. This would just be giving an employee who has been here a long time serving the city that option to consider.
Council, open.
The way this would be communicated is we would send a memorandum out to staff and then have meetings with individuals, and then those that are identified one-on-one discussions with them. Retirement is a personal option. We'll run through all the scenarios, and then they would make that decision.
I have have a question, Diana.
Yes, ma'am.
Have we done this in the past where it's only a temporary reduction versus setting a longer term?
Yes, ma'am. So in 2016, when the reduction in force was transpiring, it was the first time that we had lowered the threshold lower than 90. And originally, it was intended to be from July through September. Again, as they worked through budget, they extended it for that fiscal year. And then again, last year, we evaluated and did it for this fiscal year. So there have been some instances of it.
I do. If you don't
Go
mind.
ahead, go ahead.
Yeah. So here we see this number, and I'm sorry it's not out there for everybody, but where it says to the far or right, like you were saying, where it shows the numbers to the rule of 85. So this first individual, who is 53 and a half years old, actually falls under the criteria for something like this, where they could retire now, but we're only pay their benefits till they turn 65. Even though they're 57 months away from the rule of 85, they're technically only a year and a half worth of benefits.
Yes, sir. So in that first, the first highlighted person in blue, who's age 63 and a half, yes, they're 85 months away from meeting rule of 85, and in this particular person's instance, by the time he reaches the criteria, he's no longer eligible. As you move down, there are some individuals who are rather young. For example, the third individual, who's 11 months away from meeting rule of 85 and is age 55. In that particular department, that might be a good age for that individual to perhaps already be thinking about or considering service retirement because of the position, the type of position it is. You're 11 months. Come October, if we raise that to 90, that particular individual is now going to have to wait till probably year 2021, 2022 before they reach that threshold. And as you move even further down, you'll see some individuals who are 9 months away or 6 months away or even 3 months away. That's a very small window. And should that door close, we just want to be able to afford them that option.
They go from being 9 months to being 10 years and 9 months potentially away from.
Something of that nature, yeah. In those particular people, I think I calculated 2021 before they meet rule of 90, so 19, 20, 21, 3 more years.
5 years here, 5 years of life, 5 years of service, yeah. So fine, yep. Anyone else? Mr. Burke?
And how are you going to communicate this information to personnel?
The same way we did in 2016, so we'll send an email to all staff informing them of when it is effective and when it'll drop out. We will also communicate with department heads. We've had some individuals who just saw the agenda already and have come through HR saying, if this passes, please contact me because this is something that I may be considering and I want to sit down and speak to you about. We'll also have enrollments for insurance coming up here very quickly in the next 2 or 3 weeks, and that'll be another opportunity to have everybody. But like anything in HR, we communicate with every single department, every employee. If that means making site visits, then we certainly will do that.
Good. There's one percolating, I can see it. Ask away, Miss Cynthia.
No, I just,
You good?
I had some concerns in reference to the impact to our city as far as cross-training and if those types, but Diana did mention,
The positions
touch
that-
base
yeah.
on that a little.
Yeah, so at any given time, these people are actually already service retirement eligible, meaning that today they could say, I want to leave, I'm retiring under TMRS, so that potential is always there. The only difference here is they're trying to meet that additional benefit to have their health insurance covered for them. So succession planning is something that the city manager and I have been discussing in detail and in length and getting department heads to understand the importance of that.
And I know that they're not listed here individually, obviously, but, some of the departments that you see a lot of this longevity and you see a lot of this continued service is going to be your civil service, your fire department, and your police department. And a lot of these guys have been out on the roads for a while, so giving them a chance to for lack of a better term, cash out early, it's a huge benefit to them. It's a detriment to the city to sometimes
Of course.
lose these individuals, but, they've served their community for what,
And as you'll
is a good
see,
period of
you
time,
know,
so.
Third column in the middle of your page, you have individuals on here that, have 30-plus years of service. And they're so close to that it's something that I wanted to bring to council's attention, just to, let them know that their loyalty, 30 years to an organization is an exceptionally long time. It's something we should be proud of.
I think this is a good opportunity to allow for a short period of time for people to make a, lifelong decision here, decide what they want to do moving forward, and then during the budget process, this will be brought back up again for reevaluation for the next fiscal year, so.
Yes, sir.
I think this is a good idea as a benefit to our employees.
Yeah, we are planning to come back with the proposal to, at the end of the fiscal year, to do a 90, at least a 90.
At least a 90.
Limit our long-term liability on that, so.
We,
And yeah, there's some people that are right there, and if we were to move it, it'd kind of be unfair to do that at that time.
Without
when
offering some
they're right
people.
there.
Okay. Anything else, council? At this time, I'll accept the motion.
I'd like to move for the adoption of a resolution for the city of Dallas, adopting a retirement criteria for employees who meet the eligibility for continuation of their medical and dental benefits through the age of 65 upon service retirement from City of Alice, and whose combination of continuous years of service and age total the threshold is established by the city council.
And to be clear, to change the rule of 85 down to rule of 80. Yeah, temporarily for, from August 1st through the end of the fiscal year.
Okay, as presented.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a motion. We have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion approved as stated.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Thank you. All right. Moving on to agenda item number 7. All right. Consider and act upon award of contract for RFP number 2018-0531 EBP for group medical employee benefits program, self-insured medical and pharmacy, including stop-loss insurance, administrative services, third-party administrative services, pharmacy benefit manager, employee assistance program, provider networks for medical and pharmacy, wellness, chronic disease management, COBRA administration, and telehealth. Thank you. And B, RFP number 2018-05, thank you, 31, ancillary employee benefit program for B1, fully insured group dental insurance, B2, fully insured voluntary vision insurance, B3, group term life insurance, and B4, voluntary supplemental life insurance for the City of Alice employees. Mr. City Manager?
Yeah, Mayor Pro Tem, thank you. Today with us, we have we have Mr. Zach Gingrich and Mr. Ted Bearden with Carlisle Insurance, our employee benefits consultant. They'll be presenting, and Diana Lopez is going to be with them as well. If there's any questions on it.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council and Pro Tem and C staff. We are here tonight, as just read with the agenda, to present the results of a recent RFP that we have conducted essentially over the past 4 months now. So there's been a lot of work that's been put into this, both from your staff and from our firm. These binders that we get are about 3 inches thick, and can assure everybody that every T was crossed and every I was dotted. And we went through this to ensure that tonight, the information that you're presented, you can make a sound decision on the best coverage for your employees at the most affordable rate for your citizens. So all that being said, I know that there was a package delivered, I believe Friday or over the weekend. We did want to give every council member the opportunity to see all the work full analysis that went into it. Tonight, we're going to try and hit on the high points and our recommendations that we think is important for you to know as you vote tonight. I do want to say that we have lived, breathed, and eat these numbers, so if I get going too quick or if there's any questions, please slow me down. We want to make sure that everyone's comfortable with it. Your plan is very, I don't want to say complex, but there's a lot of moving parts with it. So there's a lot of acronyms that we use, and there's, as I mentioned, just several moving parts. So at any point, I know it goes without saying, but please do slow me down if there's any questions that arise. So all that being said, we'll start with the slideshow, which is going to be this one here. Moving to the first slide, as I mentioned, this has been a 4-month process, formerly half-a-year process before that. We did come on board with the city back in October as the consultant. Since then, we've been working with your staff, measuring the current plan, the utilization, the effectiveness of it, and preparation into the RFP process that was advertised in April. We did receive proposals the end of May, which was May 31st, to allow carriers more than enough time to really underwrite it and make sure that they put their best foot forward. After proposals were received, we did receive 8 medical proposals, which is the EBH RFP, and then we did receive 9 proposals for the ancillary. So the good news is the city got to evaluate and look at several different options and got to weigh with some of the top carriers and providers within the industry. Best and final was issued on June 25th. We gave the top proposers the opportunity to enhance their original proposal. I can say that process was also very successful, and we saw a pretty significant decrease in costs and even enhanced benefit to your employees by declaring the best and final. We did receive those July 7th. Since the 7th of this month, we have been working with your staff, fine-tuning the proposals. As I mentioned, really going through with the fine-tooth comb to make sure that what we present tonight is a final product that you can be comfortable when you make your vote. Moving on to the next slide, we do want to give a quick update, just if anything as a refresher to what the current benefits are and the projected expenses that are associated with that. We say projected just because you pay with employee count. So if employee count decreases or increases, your cost will as well. So we try to provide projection. Enrollment's relatively stable, so they're relatively accurate projections, but at the end of the day, it does vary with your enrollment count. Currently, the city offers the employees the option of a base plan at no expense to their own coverage. Your current carrier is called Healthcare Highways. Healthcare Highways is a TPA. What that means is a third-party administrator. What they do is they administer your claims for your employees when they go visit the doctor. Your estimated expense, as I mentioned, you're covering 100% of the base plan for the employee rate, is about $1.3 million. That's $326,477. The projected annual fixed cost is $350,000. Your health insurance, as I mentioned, is a third-party administrator that administers this plan. Your health insurance is what's called self-funded, so it's just that. As claims come in, the city pays these claims. With that, just like with the enrollment, as claims volume decrease or increase, it's a number that we monitor, and we'll get to the protection that's in place to ensure that the city's not at great liability at the end of the year. But a fixed portion of your plan is a guaranteed expense. And what that does is provides both administration, so that's Healthcare Highways. That's for them to just administer your claims. And then there's a level of protection that's called stop-loss insurance. Stop-loss insurance ensures that if claims exceed a level at a whole or per individual, the city is protected. So with that protection comes a fixed premium, no different than your car insurance or your homeowners. That's your fixed premium. We take both of those into account, and that comes out to what's called a fixed cost. So you'll see here that your fixed costs currently are about $354,000. As I mentioned, that is a guarantee. That is a premium that you will pay. The rest of the portion, that $1.3 million, that's your claims. They're going to come in as your employees utilize the plan. When you look at that at a PEPM basis, what that means is a per employee per month basis. The city is currently budgeted to $518 per employee per month. We multiply that out times your enrollment count, and that's how we arrive at that $1.3 million estimated expense. The City of Alice also pays 100% for your employees' dental insurance. Your current dental is not self-funded. It is actually fully insured. So what that means is you pay a flat premium, and that's what you'll pay for the remainder of that plan year. So if claims exceed what you paid in premium, you're not liable for anything else after that. The budgeted for the dental insurance is $15.71 per employee per month. If we multiply that out on an annual basis on your enrollment count, that's an annual expense of about $41,000 for the City of Alice. The current dental insurance carrier is with a company called Humana. Lastly, the city extends the opportunity for employees to elect voluntary vision, also with Humana. The current projected employee expense, because this is voluntary, is about $18,000. Lastly, the city does provide all of its employees a basic life insurance. Your current life insurance carrier is called Dearborn National. The projected annual expense that is for the city is about $23,000. Any questions on the current? Everyone, just a real refresher on what's in place as we move forward to what was proposed. Okay. Moving to the next slide, as I mentioned, we did receive 9 proposals, or it was 8, 9 proposals for the medical. For the sake of time tonight, we're going to focus on 2 carriers. Those are going to be your incumbent carrier, Healthcare Highways, and the second most competitive proposal we received and reviewed, which is going to be Blue Cross Blue Shield of Texas. Very familiar name. Most people are familiar with Blue Cross Blue Shield. Healthcare Highways has proposed about a 5.1% increase on your fixed costs. Again, this is a guaranteed expense that the city can expect to incur this next year, regardless of claim volume. On a dollar amount for that, that's about an $18,000 increase to stay with your current carrier. That's accounting for the administration of the plan and your stop-loss premium, which is your protection, which is a good thing. But in order to renew this insurance, October 1st with this carrier, it will be a 5.1% increase. Moving to the right, we did receive a very competitive offer from Blue Cross Blue Shield. If you want to look to that first gray line, their projected annual fixed cost is $287,000. Again, what that means, that is an expense that the city can plan on incurring this next year. It is a fixed cost. The good news is that is about 18% under your current fixed cost expense. So should the coverage be moved to Blue Cross Blue Shield, we predict that the City of Alice will save about $66,000 in fixed cost savings. Again, these are more concrete numbers that we can look at and be more assured that there's going to be real savings. As I mentioned, stop-loss insurance and your overall protection. With a self-insured plan, there's an aggregate deductible for the group as a whole, the city as a whole. It's referred to as an attachment point. A portion of your stop-loss premium is to ensure that you have this aggregate protection. For a municipality, for a city, it's very important that this is in place because this does cap your overall exposure. The second gray line is going to show your attachment point. The first column with Healthcare Highways show your current attachment point at about $1.6 million. So what this means, if claims were to exceed $1.6 million this plan year, the stop-loss insurance company would pick up the claims thereafter. So it limits your liability. The good news is with your renewal, there was actually a very slight decrease with your attachment point, so your overall exposure with Healthcare Highways. You're looking at 0.3% decrease, which was only about a $5,000 decrease in your overall exposure. With Blue Cross Blue Shield, they did lower your attachment point by $200,000, $206,000. So what that means is Blue Cross Blue Shield is basically ensuring is $200,000. They're going to drop your maximum exposure. So now it's at 1.6. Should the coverage go to Blue Cross Blue Shield, it's at 1.4 million. So we sure hope that it doesn't. And typically attachment points are not reached. It is rare, but it does happen. And so you have to take that into account when you're considering the maximum exposure the city is liable to. So with Blue Cross Blue Shield, you are going to lower your overall liability by $200,000. Any questions on that, the numbers?
I did. Does anybody else in council? I had a question in regards to the increase or decrease from current, that premium credit. They're giving us $100,000 in credit this year.
Yes,
Is there
sir.
any contingencies on it? Like, I mean, are we signing a 1-year contract? Are we doing a 2-year contract? Because, that's great if it's just for this 1 year, but if it comes into play where now we're required to go year 2, that's actually becomes an increase of $40,000.
Right.
You know, so there's a lot of swing there between that utilizing that 100,000 and that 200,000, saying that's our total savings, because basically that 200,000 becomes a negative.
Right.
If it's contingent on,
Yeah, it's a great point. And the way the premium credit will work is it will require a 1-year contract. So, your health insurance, you can shop it for October to January 1st. So to receive that credit, they would want you to have the insurance for 1 year. The way that credit will work is basically your fixed cost on a monthly basis runs about, I wrote down, about $40,000 a month is your fixed cost. So essentially your first 2 months, there's going to be no fixed cost. And what that's going to do is that's going to help offset the run-out administration from your previous plan. So it's more to assist with the transition between the two carriers, because the way the claims they work is that if I were to go to the doctor today it's the 24th of July, by the time that claim is processed by the TPA, adjudicated, a network discount applied to it, it might not show up on the plan until August or September. So we take that into account for your employees that will utilize the health insurance the month of August and September. Those claims are going to show up November, December, into the next plan year. So there's always, it's what's called runoff administration. But on that same token, when you switch a TPA or a carrier, your months of October and November with your new carrier are going to be really, really slow, because those claims are taking about 3 months to come through the system. So the credit is to really offset that. It helps with the city as far as just cash flow. You're going to get essentially your first 3 months are going to be completely discounted to the fixed cost. Your second month, I think you'll receive about $16,000 credit to that. But to your point, it's a 1-year fix, and so it is applied this year. The good news with a self-funded plan, and obviously with health insurance, you don't want to be moving around a lot. You don't want that disruption in your employees. You want to establish a long-term relationship. Well, a self-funded plan, some of your largest driving factors in cost are stop loss. With a self-funded plan, you can shop the stop loss every single year without having any kind of disruption to your employees. The stop loss is behind the scenes. That's to provide the city with protection. So if we're looking at next year, and if there is some violations and an increase, it's pretty seamless to go out for stop loss insurance RFP. That way your employees, they don't even know it. They have no idea what's going on, and they have no disruption to their benefit. But it's a great mechanism to control costs in the self-funded plan. So it's just food for thought, for consideration. That is always an option to do that next year upon renewal. Okay.
Anybody else?
Moving from there, we're going to look at the actual plan designs. When we package this RFP, we always ask that the carriers mirror the current plan design. Speaking of disruption, we want to keep it minimum for your employees. So what we're looking at here, column 1 is your current plan design, column 2 is your renewal, and column 3 is Blue Cross Blue Shield. A lot of numbers here, essentially, but what Blue Cross Blue Shield has done is they're going to mirror the benefit design of your current plan. So what this means, they're going to match your deductibles, they're going to match your out-of-pocket maximums, they're going to match your copays, and they're going to match the pharmacy copays. So employees, as far as utilizing the health insurance, is going to be the same cost to go see their family practitioner as it was with the previous plan. So we don't expect much disruption on that front. The true, I think, difference here, if you guys want to focus down at the bottom, is your monthly rates. These are going to be the payroll deductions. This is what the employees are really going to pay attention to when it comes to their health insurance. How much is being taken out of their paycheck? If they're on the base plan, and I apologize, I should have started. This is the base plan. The city does offer 2 plans, so we are looking at your base plan. If they're on this plan, which you'll see in the enrollment count, this is where the majority of your population is. It's at no expense to them at the employee-only rate. Currently, your employee-only rate is about $500.18. If you were to look at a renewal with Healthcare Highways to adequately fund the case, that rate would go to about 523. From a budgetary standpoint, I know that's the agenda item right now to get that finalized. The Blue Cross rate would be $436.79 for employee-only rate. If you want to look down following that $436.79 in column 3, that $917, that is your employee spouse rate, monthly rate. Currently, it's at $1,067. If we were to look at Blue Cross, it's $917. So for employees to add their spouse, it's going to cost them significantly less to get their spouse on the plan. If they do have children, which you have about 38 employees that do have their children on the plan, it's currently an $816 rate. With the proposed Blue Cross Blue Shield rates, it's $698. So again, we're seeing a decrease. The same is accounted for on the family rate. Typically, we find, as I mentioned, this is where the employees pay the most attention, is how much is going to be payroll deducted. We've done a lot of analysis, we'll get to in a second, on the funding mechanisms to ensure that the plan is funded correctly, and that we've talked about our protection that we have with the stop loss, but at the end of the year, the city is not exposed to any additional liability as well.
Now, sorry.
Sure.
In regards to in the booklet that you handed us, I didn't see it on the slides, but just for the general public and employees to know, the amount of carriers or primary care providers under the 2 increases dramatically, correct?
Yes.
That's correct. So the current arrangement that you have through Healthcare Highways is you guys utilize what's called a narrow network. And I don't mean narrow in a negative way. It does a great job of controlling costs. But with a narrow network, you're utilizing the Christus Spohn healthcare system. So what that means is you're going to utilize the Spohn hospitals, the one here in Alice and the ones in Corpus Christi and in Kingsville. And you're going to utilize their outpatient providers. And when I say outpatient, I mean family practitioners, internal medicine, OBGYN, cardiologists, outpatient imaging, et cetera, et cetera. So you're only utilizing Spohn providers. Within our local counties, so Jim Wells, Nueces, Clayburgh, Kennedy, San Patricio, and I believe getting out towards down 37, that one county. B County. Utilize the Spohn healthcare system because that's where they're predominantly at. If employees do go to seek healthcare in San Antonio, in Houston, Dallas, or even down in the Valley, they utilize what's called a rental network. A rental network is called, the rental you currently utilize is PHCS. The way networks work is every carrier, and there was in this package, we tried to analyze the discounts. What kind of discounts are you getting by utilizing different networks? Typically, rental networks show a much less discount, 30 to 40%. It does vary per provider, per facility. With Blue Cross Blue Shield, again, it's a familiar name that we're all comfortable with. They're a national carrier. They're going to be in every state, every city. And they're going to be very prominent, especially here in Texas. So when you do have, and there is, we did analyze utilization, there is employees going outside of our local counties here in South Texas to utilize healthcare. When you do find yourself using a PPO Blue Cross network, it's going to be discounted significantly more than if you use a rental network. So from a claim standpoint, the assumption would be that we would see a decrease in those claims. To the provider count, if you do utilize Blue Cross Blue Shield, you are no longer limited to only Spohn providers or providers within the Spohn network, because there is Radiology Associates, Radiology in Mini-South Texas. There is other providers within the Spohn network. But when you utilize Blue Cross Blue Shield, you're really going to open that up to a very broad network. So our prediction is there's going to be a large increase in the access to care, that geo-access report that we provided. We're just trying to measure how employees will have access to primary care physicians, to hospitals, to the specialist. One thing to take into account is that there's the 2 hospitals in Corpus Christi, so Bay Area and Doctors Regional. These are Healthcare Corporation of America, HCA-owned hospitals. You will now have these hospitals in network. Spohn's a great healthcare system, and so is HCA, so really you're just opening up the option for your employees to choose one or the other. Right now, currently, if they do go to one Doctors Regional Bay Area, they're going to find themselves out on network. So as I mentioned, both are great healthcare systems. You're just going to give your employees now the option to make the choice for themselves.
And that's saying that Spawn is still covered, with the exception of one of the 7 or whatever it is.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
But
So
that one's supposed to be coming on here shortly too, correct?
Right. Well, which one?
It's the lab.
So LabCorp, that, and we were getting clarification with Blue Cross today, so I do apologize, but the LabCorp in Corpus is in network. And so we're working with their network specialists to try and we.
But that's not in Jim Wells County. I guess that's why when you put it in
Correct,
here.
yes, sir. That's why
It
we-
shows it as being out, yeah.
Correct, yes, sir.
So our employees actually aren't losing any of their primary care providers. They're just not being necessarily forced to switch like they were when we had to make a decision to move to Healthy Highways, for whatever financial reasons or whatever the decision was to do that at the time. They kind of had to switch to stay in network.
That's correct, right. And the good news, when it comes to those laboratories, the majority utilization is going to Quest. You had about 97,000 in claims were ending up at Quest versus only about 5,000 end up at LabCorp. So it's very, very heavy-handed towards Quest, which is in network. So from a disruption standpoint, we would expect it to be pretty minimum by going Blue Cross.
Very good. Okay. Anybody else on that one? Thank you. Okay.
Moving on from there, as I mentioned,
Zach, on this one,
Yes.
just to clarify, we have, you have 436 on here. That's the funding one. I would like to print this one out or make copies of this for the council. This is the expected is 45. I know what you plugged in there was the, what we were going to fund. So they can have the expected on both. So on the slide, it's expected on healthcare, but the funded amount that we're proposing on Blue Cross.
gotcha, okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We copy this one?
So the rate instead for the
The employee only
third
on.
column.
On the third column, to give you an idea, the employee would be 4532. But he'll get to the funding. This is from the funding side.
Yeah, but it's better to have it clear in case
Right.
anybody requests this document.
And so we'll get the printout of the
We'll get it correct.
of the right one.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you for catching that.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, so we can still move on anyway.
Yeah.
The one thing that we didn't touch on is very bottom of Blue Cross showing that that's a 13% reduction in overall premium.
And that's based on the funding. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get to the funding. It's, there's a lot of moving parts, as I mentioned. There's a lot of options. I know the staff has done a thorough job of ensuring that whatever is selected, that the plan is adequately funded at the end of the year when it all comes to light. If we can move on from there, as I mentioned, the City of Alice, you do offer your employees 2 plans. So there is an option that employees have to elect what is referred to as the buy-up plan. Essentially what this plan does is offer your employees a lower deductible and lower copays on several of the office visits. Just like we reviewed with the current base plan, the RFP was packaged to ensure that the plan designs do mirror. So any employees that have chose to elect to buy up, if you will, into the more enhanced plan, their benefit levels, so deductibles and copays, are going to remain the same. So there's not going to be just a disruption on that front. Looking at the rates on these, column 1 is going to show your current rates. We say buy up because this plan offers a higher or more enhanced level of benefit. So with that, you pay the difference, and you pay the difference in price to have the lower deductible and lower copays. Currently, your employee-only rate is $644.59, so $644.59 for the employee rate to buy up. What the city does is you contribute that $518 from the base plan. Employees pay the difference, if that makes sense. So they're electing to buy up. If they do want to add a dependent, it's that same formulary. You're going to take that rate and you're going to subtract the $500.18 the city contributes, and they pay the difference to elect. Your enrollment counts are down there in the left-hand side. Obviously, as we mentioned, a lot of the enrollment is heavily on the base plan, but you do have some employees that are choosing to elect to buy up. Focusing on the rates, if you want to look at column 3 for Blue Cross Blue Shield, just like we saw with the base plan, essentially across the board, these rates are going to be less, which means less payroll deduction, or around the same payroll deduction as the current base plan.
Real quick.
Yes, sir.
Is this one correct? Because it seems like the other ones are an increase of about 140 to 150 on the other ones, and then this one is only about $100 differential for the buy-up.
We'll get to that little section in a minute, and you'll actually see the movement from this year to next year.
Okay.
But on this particular plan, it's going to stay flat for those employees. They'll see no increase or decrease based on what we will be providing and the difference that they'll be paying to buy up.
Okay.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're going to see more of the savings on the base plan. This is where the majority of the population is. With the buy-up plan, essentially with lower deductibles, it does push more, I guess, exposure back onto the city. And so, to Diana's point, the good news is there's no disruption on the level of benefit and really the payroll deduction. So for the employees that do prefer to have this level of benefit, we're expecting minimal disruption, both from rate and benefit level. Any questions on the buy-up plan, the rates proposed?
Yeah, but to clarify, you're asking, what he's asking about was actually the
monthly rate.
581. That is the funding that we're proposing on the employee only.
And the reason I asked that.
That's not the expected, is it?
Yeah, because that seems like it's too low compared to some of the other, the increase that we talked about, yeah. It seems like.
The expected is, on the Blue Cross, is a 626. And I think same as on the previous one, the 485. And this slide where we're looking at, what happened is, because the 581 is the proposed funding, correct?
Is the
Correct.
expected, yes, sir.
That proposed funding, though, amount, expected premium.
Essentially both. It is the expected amount, and what that's going to do, as we mentioned, is ensure that that employee rate payroll deduction is going to remain the same for the employee. When we get to the funding, we did show that number for these funding analysis, so the funding level that's coming from the buy-up plan we're going to reflect that at the end. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah, once we get to that, then we can,
Yeah, it'll
Okay.
start making a little more sense as it all goes
Okay,
through.
thank you.
Is there any, I am going to shift gears to dental insurance. Is there any other questions on the medical insurance before we move on?
How long have we been self-funded?
We began fiscal year 2014 was our first year. We'll be entering our 6th year this fiscal year. It has worked very well in our favor as we proceed with the presentation. We'll kind of hit some of those marks and some of the goals that we've met, that we set out as staff for the plan itself. But yes, sir, fiscal year 2014 was the first year.
Shifting gears towards the dental insurance, what we're looking at here is column 1 on the very left is going to be your current care with Humana. Humana proposed no increase to your current insurance coverages. We did receive very competitive proposals from other dental insurance carriers that are actually going to be able to provide the city with a savings should you choose one of these other carriers. What we're looking at here are the top carriers that proposed. These were the final carriers that were in the best and final process, which is going to be Humana, Emeritus, and Guardian. All 3 of these companies are great companies. They're very specialized in dental insurance. It was in y'all's packet. We measure how much they reimburse out of network. We're trying to measure the level of benefit that your employees will have should they utilize an out-of-network dentist. And all of that taken into account, the option on the far right, Guardian, is our recommendation, and we think the best value for your employees, both on out-of-network reimbursements, price for the city, and of course then the coverage that's associated with the plan. Just like we did with the medical, we packaged this up that the benefit levels, the deductibles, and the copays, well, it's not copays with the dental insurance, but the percentage that they cover procedures is going to be the same for both coverages. So you're giving your employees the same level of benefit for a lesser price. Is there any questions on the dental insurance? It's a little more black and white than the health insurance. Okay. Shifting gears, we will look at the voluntary vision. This was included within the RFP process. This is voluntary for your employees, so this is not at the city's expense, but nonetheless, you want to make sure that the best coverage at the best price is being offered. On the vision insurance, Humana is a great vision insurance carrier, and they have the city rated very competitively. So you'll see with these proposals that Humana has not provided an increase. Several other carriers provided the same rate, and several provided an increase. So to avoid disruption, and as we looked at some of the other options, there's some valuable options on the table that would provide a moving carrier. Our recommendation is to keep the coverage with Humana, simply because it's not an increase for your employees and is extremely competitively rated within our market from what we see. Any questions on the insurance? Okay. The last item to discuss and the lines of coverage that were advertised is the group life insurance. As we mentioned, this is an expense the city does incur as you do provide all your employees with a basic life insurance policy. This was also taken out for the RFP. We received several proposals. Most were actually not very competitive at all. Dearborn National is well, actually just, I believe, won the insurance last year through this RFP process and has provided a zero increase to the city. There was one option on the table that was slightly undercurrent, about 3%, but when you look at the annual difference between the two carriers, our recommendation is that to stay with Dearborn, just to avoid disruption. Typically, there is a cost that's associated with switching carriers. It's a lot of time of the staff. It's a lot of time for your employees learning the new coverage. So you do want to take that into account when you're looking at pennies on the dollars. There's a lot of sense that comes from staying with the current carrier unless you're seeing a very drastic increase in cost. So all that taken into account, we would recommend that the life insurance renew with Dearborn National. A little bit of a side note, Dearborn National is actually a Blue Cross Blue Shield owned company. They operate under different names, but Blue Cross Blue Shield does own Dearborn National. So large national carrier, financially sound, and so forth. Okay. Moving on, we do want to quickly recap in the executive summary the numbers we just reviewed. From a financial standpoint, for the medical insurance, we do have to recommend Blue Cross Blue Shield. It's going to provide the City of Alice with a fixed cost savings of $66,000 for 2018 and 2019 plan year. We talked about the decrease in overall liability. Blue Cross Blue Shield is going to decrease the City of Alice's overall liability by $200,000. The dental insurance, we are going to recommend Guardian, as we saw several slides back. The projected savings that we estimate the city will experience is going to be around $16,000 to move the dental insurance to Guardian. The vision insurance, as I did mention, we do recommend that we keep that with Humana, no increase, and the other proposals were not nearly as competitive as we saw with the other coverages. And lastly, as we just discussed, the life insurance, we do recommend that we renew the insurance with Dearborn National, simply because it is a very competitive rate, and the proposals alternatives were slightly under to not truly justify switching the coverage. Projected total savings throughout this whole process, we are proud to report that it was a successful process, and we're looking at about $83,000 in savings for the City of Alice this next plan year with the health insurance.
Funding options
Okay.
for medical.
Any questions on all the numbers? Okay. We're going to shift gears to the standalone sheet that was handed out prior to the presentation. Well, as we mentioned, there's a lot of moving parts, and we're looking at funding levels. We look at the fixed costs, the guaranteed expenses that the city is going to incur, but you do have to take into account the claim volume, and as it varies. What we're showing in column 1 is your current funding level. So you'll see that $518, as we discussed, which is about $1.3 million in funding. That's city expense that's being funded to allocate for the overall medical expense of the plan. Moving down below that 0%, because that is showing current, the payroll deductions and funding that you're receiving from the monthly rates, those monthly rates we looked at, is about $1.4 million on the base plan. So that's the first plan, the higher deductible, higher copay plan. When we take into account the funding that we're receiving from the buy-up plan, it's about $115,000. We combine the two of those, the overall funding that is being allocated towards the healthcare expense, all the fixed costs and the claims volume is about $1.5 million, or $1,573,000. The max exposure that the city is exposed to right now is the column underneath that, the $2 million. What we are taking into account there is your attachment point. If you remember, that was $1.6 million. We want to put on our fixed costs, so we want to put on our administration and our stop-loss premium on top of that. And when we do that, we get to that $2 million maximum exposure. The variance between the two of those is about $442,000. To date, I probably should have started with this, the claims for the city of Alice has been relatively stable over the past years, and it's always usually around $1 million. A little above, a little below, but it's always remained stable. So when you look at your attachment at $1.6 million, essentially you're $600,000 overfunded is what, or overfunded is not the best word, but $600,000 is your 1.6 is your total maximum exposure, but you're only running about $1 million in claims. So one of our goals for the RFP process was to what Blue Cross did is lower that attachment. We didn't think it was being underwritten correctly, and setting the maximum exposure that high. Usually it's 25% expected, so that should be around 1.2 or 1.3 million. Moving past that 442,000, the current claims fund. So this is the fund that is in the claims fund account to pay for medical expenses is $1.7 million. As I mentioned, attachment points are rarely ever hit. So if the city were to have the worst case scenario, for lack of better words, attachment was hit, and taking into account your fixed costs that you do have for the plan year, you still would have a $1.3 million surplus within that account. So the good news is the city of Alice is in a very financial stable position right now. And those are the numbers that were taken into account when we start establishing what are our monthly funding rates. And as I keep talking about, minimizing that overall liability, but from the claims fund balance, again, it's very stable ground. If you look at column 2, what we're going to show is Blue Cross Blue Shield, same scenario. What's been budgeted for this year is that $436.79 per employee. On an annual basis, that's about $1.1 million in claims funding, or claims expense, to the city of Alice. That's what would be the projected expense. You were funding $518 last year, so that's about a 13% decrease from last year to this year. We take into account the payroll deductions, so these are the numbers that we reviewed on those previous slides. For the base plan, it's about $1.2 million. For the buy-up plan, so the lower deductible and the lower copays, it's about $106,000. We allocate all this together, and the total funding that will be towards the plan is $1.3 million. So that is what's going to be funded towards the plan. Again, for lack of better words, the worst case scenario for this next plan year and the max exposure, if you were to eat up all of the attachment point, is $1.7 million. That leaves the difference or the variance between the two about $358,000. Taking into account what you have in your claims fund, if it again was the worst case scenario, at this time next year you'd have $1.4 million still in reserve in that claims account. Any questions on us? It's A lot of moving parts, but is that making sense, what's being funded and trying to bridge that liability?
I did want to kind of point out, earlier I had mentioned a couple of goals that staff had as we started this process back in 2014. The first and foremost was to save money. As Zach explained, with a fully funded or fully insured plan, if you're paying in $1 million and if we're paying into the company $1 million and they're only paying out $800,000, they're keeping that additional $200,000. This is working very well for the city of Alice. As Zach explained, our fund balance right now is about $1.7 million. Back in 2015, the city was funding for every employee $604.90. Here we are, fiscal year 19, and we're proposing funding at $436.79. The second goal was not only to be able to reduce the burden on employee expenses, but also control costs for dependents. And I kind of want to point y'all's attention to the sheet up here. It's the last one in your packet. And over the years, we've seen stabilization of our dependent rates, and for those of us that carry children or spouses or families, the good news to report this year is because we have such a healthy reserve and in running numbers and in finding something that was suitable to fund per employee per month and in playing with those rates, dependents, those that carry dependents are going to see decreases. So second column, Plan 2, the low plan, the base plan we talked about, ESP is employee spouse. All the way to the right-hand side, second to the last column from the left, they're going to see a decrease of $87.12 per month. For those that carry children, $54.48 per month. And for those that carry family, $119.26 per month. That was the second goal. The third goal, of course, was to broaden that network. And with the movement to Blue Cross, we will be accomplishing that as well. So this is one of those projects that over the course of my years, I call kind of my baby. So it's nice to see it grow and mature. And Carlisle's been a wonderful extension. A lot of work went into this. So please ask your questions. And then we'll move forward with award of the contracts.
One thing to point out on the premiums here, the first 2 years when you do a partially self-funded, we've been saying self-funded, but to be clear, let's partially self-funded because you have a stop-loss carrier. As opposed to you can be fully self-insured where you have no stop-loss and there's no premium for that, but then you have all the exposure and the unlimited risk. As a municipality, you do want to have the partially self-insured. You want to have that stop-loss carrier so you can have a max liability. And so, there's a premium for max liability, and year 1, year 2, and year 3, you want to do that because you want to have that maximum exposure budgeted. As you move forward in the partially self-funded world, you're in essence, you're participating in your own plan. You own it instead of renting it like you do with fully insured. And so, like Diana said, you pay a premium. If we were spending $1.6 million in premium and we only spent $1 million, in claims, the insurance company keeps that. Here, there's participation in that from us as a municipality, but we still have that overall coverage. But in the beginning, you don't want to underfund anything because you don't have the reserves.
Right.
And now when you go 5, 6, 7 years down the road, you have the reserves. Now you have flexibility to fund less than the maximum coverage because you still have that. So that sheet that he handed out shows even at worst case, with the proposed funding, still be at $1.4 million in the benefits trust fund. Doesn't mean that that's going to go away. The trend has been that it's not going to be max worst case scenario. It hasn't been these years.
And the expected claim volume from Blue Cross Blue Shield as they underwrite is 1.1 million. That's what they expect your claims to run this next year. So when you're looking at that and the funding of with Blue Cross of the 1.3, you're still essentially $200,000 overfunded to where they're thinking claims are going to come into. So Mr. Sparks made the great point, and Ms. Lopez has done a great job, because it's a long-term strategy, but it was mentioned, how long have we been self-insured? This is the strategy portion of where you can sit here and rest very comfortable that you have such a healthy reserve that these rates that you're going to provide your employees at lower payroll deductions, enhanced coverage, it's essentially turns into a win-win for everybody. So we do have to commend the staff that they've done a very strategic and a safe planning to where we can all be here tonight and see a savings for everybody. Real quick, just so I do touch on it, if it comes up later, turning back to this, the funding that we were looking at, column 3 is your proposed renewal with Healthcare Highways. So what we're taking into account here is we're still budgeting to that 436.79. So you're going to see about an expense projected for the city at 1.1 million. That's about 13% increase or decrease, excuse me, from current. But what's different here is we are going to take into account the overall maximum exposure that was proposed with your renewal. So we're going to take into account the payroll deductions and the total funding that goes to the plan. That's going to be that 1.4 million or 1,449,000. That's how much would be set aside into the claims account. You do have to take into account that your maximum exposure with your renewal is 2 million, as opposed to the 1.7 that you saw with Blue Cross Blue Shield. So if we do run a worst case scenario, and we do run through all our the difference between expected and that maximum exposure, really it's that $576,000. That's the variance. That's what you're short funded, if you will. You take into account, again, that healthy claims reserve. Worst case scenario, you'd be at 1.1 million next year with Healthcare Highways, as opposed to the 1.4 with Blue Cross Blue Shield. So you're just dropping your exposure ultimately by going with Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Yeah, thank you for your efforts. It's good. It's good to see now, in a time where if you try to get health insurance, it's always continuously going up. That the plans come into fruition, that we can actually, insure, and it's going down.
It's going down.
So, thank you for your efforts. Thank you for the effort put forward, Michael. I'm pretty sure you and probably John were on council when that decision was made to move over. So thank you for starting that way back when. And this is, like you said, this is the kind of stuff that we as council move on now, and the fruits of the labor that we have planted won't even come to fruition till the next council, and hopefully at that point we may still be on it, but it's a continuous process, and thank you for what y'all have done to make this possible. So if there's no other discussion, Ron, did you have something? We need to break these down into individuals, or how do we do this, John?
I would recommend each line of coverage just to make it clear: medical, dental, life, and vision.
So I'll take a motion on group medical, employee benefits, self-insured medical, and so on. Section A.
To include the funding level, the kind of the base or as presented.
As presented.
Yeah. Okay.
As recommended.
Okay, I would like to make a motion for the approval or acceptance of awarding medical insurance fixed cost savings to Blue Cross Blue Shield at the funding level recommended.
We have a motion? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries as stated. Section B. Now, do we do B1, B2, and B3 as a whole? Or they're up there, or just as recommended, it really doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll take a motion.
If you want the language to it, it might be.
If you would cover us, then we just say as stated.
Move to approve the ancillary employee benefits programs as presented,
Presented.
or as suggested, or as recommended.
As recommended. We have a statement. Does anybody move? So move.
I'll move for the acceptance of the statement as presented and recommended by staff.
Second.
We have a motion and a second.
Ancillary employee benefits.
Ancillary Employee Benefits Program.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed, say nay. Motion stands as stated.
Give you a timeline. Enrollments will be opening here very quickly toward the end of August, and we will be up and going and fully ready. October 1, new cards, everything in place. Always the goal is little disruption to our employees. So thank you, Mayor and Council, for your time this evening.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for both. All right. All right, moving on to agenda item number 8. Consider and act upon approving a resolution in support of the proposed dedication of 9.82 acres, more or less, being Lot 5 and the east 3 acres of Lot 4, Harkins Industrial Park, Section 5, recorded in Volume 7, page 39, map records of Jim Wells County, Texas, for usage as a community park, sports recreational field and facilities, and known as the City of Alice Youth Recreation Field Complex, or as determined by City Council. All right, I'm going to take a moment real quick to read the mayor, the letter that the mayor presented in regards to this agenda item. As we come to agenda item number 8, we take notice that it is coming from a tabled motion on July 10th, agenda item number 8, requested by me, Jolene B. Vanover, your mayor of the City of Alice. At this time, there is no pressing matter nor financial consideration that would require for tonight's number 8 agenda item to be of high priority. Out of courtesy, I've asked respectfully for today's agenda item number 8, which is in my name, and a sponsorship, none of which was requested by me, to be postponed to August 14th of the next regularly scheduled meeting. I will physically be present at that time to participate in deliberations. This is a great sign of moving forward in a positive direction while working together. I would like to take part with the council and provide input on the respectfully, my original agenda item, and doing things the right way the first time and allowing for growth without repeated obstacles as we have displayed in the past. As always, teamwork makes the dream work. If the council denies me the right to sit in on deliberations on the topic of discussion on August 14th, which was originally brought to council by me at our previous meeting, out of courtesy, I ask that the council, considering the things for a continuous positive growth of the city, consider the declaration of Harkins Industrial Park, no specific sport to be dedicated for usage, no specific age be dedicated. This because it would allow for the city and its citizens to feel the liberty to get creative in the usage of the area for the football field or endless possibilities of recreation activities on the large piece of property. This could possibly create additional partnerships such as the one with Alice Youth Football League currently unfolding on the property. This would also encourage citizens of all ages to utilize and develop the City of Alice Park without a sense of imposing. Hopefully one day, allowing our citizens to take part in possibly naming this area the City of Alice Recreational Complex or Complex. Let me restate that. 1, the City of Alice Recreational Fields or Complex. 2, Alice Coyote Recreational Complex or Fields, etc. In doing this, I feel that we would open up to endless amounts of recreational possibilities and would display a sense of welcome to the citizens of all ages. As we see time and time again in our cities, some smaller than ours, we offer multi-use parks that can see anything from football, basketball, walking, all the way to frisbee throwing and everything in between. I ask council to consider the above and our goal and dream to be a better, more productive city tomorrow than we were yesterday. Respectfully, Jolene B. Vanover, Mayor of the City of Alice. Okay. Having that.
Pro Tem, you're also a co-sponsor of this. How do you feel about it?
Right now, the reason I'm a co-sponsor and the reason this came forward again is because at the last meeting when this happened, I did specifically say that we needed to bring it back as soon as possible to dedicate this to not necessarily the youth, but to recreation within our community. I personally feel that the continuous movement on this would not hinder us. I don't, we have heard the statements by her, and I agree with, in some aspects as to, what she has stated, non-specific to sport, non-specific to age group, that we can dedicate this field to the City of Alice Recreational Field Complex. Right now, we call it the soccer fields. We want to open that up. It is Harkins Industrial Park, and it is going to continue to be a part. We are not giving this field to any one individual. We're giving it to the city, and I feel that coming forth with the idea that this is a recreational field complex or just a recreational complex would allow for us to move forward. We also have donations coming into the city. I know that the league itself is taking donations, and they're working on the field already, but we have donations coming into the city that it would help us to be able to accept these donations if we were applying them to the specific complex, to dedicate it there. So I honestly feel that at this point, we can move forward on this. I hate to say it, but we've been accused of tabling items in the past, and I felt that as a council, we tabled items that we weren't prepared for. This is prepared. Staff is ready to move on it, and they've done their research so that we can get it taken care of, and we will be able to move Alice forward. So,
I would have thought if there was going to be a delay, it would, because like, for example, the health insurance is going to have a much wider impact on the city and the personnel than naming of a field. I would have thought that would be the one that was going to be mentioned, but it wasn't.
Yeah. I'm not going to assume or speak to anything I don't know.
Yeah.
I know that she's passionate about this specific issue. Her name is on this issue. It's not on any other agenda items. Maybe that's what warranted this, but I'm not going to speak on behalf of her aside from the letter that was presented. Aside from the fact that I can say she is passionate about this one. She did state before that this was her baby back when it started and so forth. But I think that we can move on this. I think we have a recommendation that is good. I think taking into account her recommendations, maybe one small portion of it should be moved, or removed, I'm sorry. Council, anything else?
Well, the concern just seems to be, in listening to what she presented, is the use of the field. The use, who's going to use it. The name is not going to necessarily affect who uses it, my understanding. It still will be available to just about anybody that could want it for any particular...
Yeah.
It's like saying, well, only Optimus can use Optimus Field, or Anderson, people named Anderson can only use Anderson Park. The name doesn't going to restrict the usage of it.
And just for clarification, this is more of a dedication of intended use, because it's not a renaming. It's still going to say Harkins Industrial Park.
Yeah.
And so what y'all have in front of you is more of just a dedication of what you all expect it to be used as, but still it doesn't have to be used as that. It's just
Well, I mean,
yeah.
we see the cross use, like she said here, in regards to the sports, football, basketball. Football fields are used for soccer fields every day. So the idea that this can become more than just a football field or more than just a park dedicated to football, standard football field, I was speaking to some turf care professionals recently, and the standard football field takes up about 1.8 acres. Once you add your boundaries and your sidelines, you're looking at just under 2. If you add bleachers, you're looking at 2.5 maybe. That's 2.5 acres out of 10. So we've got a lot of land out there, and we want to promote the idea that okay, yeah, we have a football/soccer field or whatever going on that's going down now, primarily used for football because we have other soccer fields in town, but we have 7 more acres that we would love to see become more. So the idea in my head is, the City of Alice recreational field complex, something along those lines. or even just recreational complex, because maybe one day we start putting, move some playgrounds out there for families that are participating out there in the events, would be my recommendation. So, anything else?
Just a comment or observation that whatever, I think that's the general direction of the council, the will of the council for that multi-use, but that the procedures, the protocols, and the system be very concise, very clear, that everybody understands where it's at, so there's not misunderstandings and miscommunications along the way when it's applied. That's all I'm asking, is make sure that that is in place, very clear and very concise, that everybody's on the same page.
Because we're just going to dedicate it tonight, right? We're not going to do anything else about, like, anything about restrictions or anything like that.
No, this is just something it's the council resolving that we would like to dedicate the intended use of this area to be recreational fields.
Sure.
Not anything else, but it's not restrictive to not allow it for anything else. It's just kind of showing what the council intends it to be.
And moving forward,
Yeah.
that the use of this park could become more along with fields. We could have festivals over there as well. Now, we do have some restrictions and some limitations that need to be highly reviewed in regards to the fact that we're neighbored right up next to an airport.
Right.
So there are light restrictions and other things that we have to take heavily into consideration. But, the other reason I feel that it's important to actually move forward and to do this is because this specific chunk of land has come before council several times over for sale, right? Even earlier, even in the last meeting that we had, I was like, wait a minute, I thought we were going to bring this back before council and put it on the agenda for park sale and this, that, and the other. This would just be us as a council saying, look, we're dedicating it to recreation. We're dedicating it to being more than just an empty field that we have to mow, and that we're kind of taking it off the table for sale. So that's how I feel about this one.
Well, I've been around town, and there's not a lot of places that I guess for recreational sports, for young folks. Yolanda's kind of can bear with me. I used to rent the fields all the time, and when I used to coach Little League and Junior League, Senior League, 18 and under, and I would always be kind of competing with soccer folks that would go out there in the outfield, and I didn't want to, I couldn't share the field because I'd have guys hitting the ball out there. And then I think Zeke Mora, they turned it into a football field out in the outfield, So I think it's a good thing. I think we need to name it. I think we need to move on and then, work it out as it goes. That's my gist on it.
On here, it says to dedicate a portion of Harkins Industrial Park. Why is that? Why do we have that in there? A portion.
Well, I mean, when we were bringing it forward about youth football, and that's when the resolution got drafted. And so if there was going to be a portion that was going to be specifically football, then it would need to be just a portion, because there is a lot of land out there, and it's kind of hard to dedicate the whole thing. So a portion, and it's not specific either.
It's kind of broad.
Yeah.
See, and I think that today, moving forward on this, the proposed resolution that's before us, we can actually say, no, the complex itself can be dedicated as a whole, as a complex. And then later on, we can always go back, and if somebody wants to go build a field wholly, we can do the same as the Optimus Field, and dedicate individual with their own signs and what have you. But the full 9 acres, I think that we need to retain and say that is going to be a sports complex for the city of Dallas. That is the ultimate goal for us moving forward, is that we can do more out there for our citizens.
Your agenda item and your resolution contradict. each other. They're contradictions in its own terms. It discusses a portion in the whereas, and then in the second in the first whereas, and the second whereas, it talks about the entire 9.82 acres. So based upon the way it's been presented, you can designate by resolution the entire amount for your community park, sports, recreational field, and facilities. Additionally, the language for community park, sports, recreation, field, and facilities can be anything. Recreation, what's recreation? Laying in the weeds, reading a book.
Listening to music. That's what I'm saying. If we
Throwing a
do,
frisbee.
Yeah.
It can be all of those things, and staff has worded it generally broad enough to cover any potential uses. So I think you're fine, Ms. Carrasco, if you're going to dedicate the entire park or the entire 9.82 acres based upon the way it's worded. And I think that your general language in regards to the type of recreational field facilities, Mr. Crisp, I think that's appropriate to allow any use for the entire 9.82 acres, provided it's recreational. Okay?
okay.
I just say we leave out youth.
I
Just keep it recreational.
recreational field comp. I agree
Keep it simple.
for the full 9.82.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes, because this is supposed to be for public use, so
And that's
that would
that
encompass.
opens the door.
Good point.
Yep, good, that's a very good point. Okay. And, you know, like council has said, or, you know, legal counsel and Mr. Esparza have said is, just because, and even Mr. Burke have said, is just because, even if we did decide to leave it youth, which I don't think we should, doesn't mean that only the youth can use it. You know, flag football teams and everybody can use it, but I think by removing youth, we've opened the door for that whole 9.5 acres or 9.82 acres for anybody and
More general.
everybody.
More general.
More general, more open.
Won't
Yes,
exclude
we're gonna have
anybody.
football fields there, yes, we're gonna have soccer fields there, but we're hoping for more. We've got less than a third of it actually gonna be set up and ready to go here soon with the tremendous efforts made by citizens of Alice, but we want it to be more, the whole thing to be something. So, having said that, any more discussion? Go ahead.
I just think we need to be careful, and we've spoken about this in reference to how we move forward. I mean, if we dedicate that, that's fine, but as far as, you know, being very clear how the use is, we cannot do, or we're gonna limit it to the public use, because it is a public use, charging fees or entry fees and stuff, admissions.
Well, it's standard park, right?
Yeah, if someone's going to use it, it's going to be with the league. If the league's going to use it, just like the other leagues, the Little League and the Boys and Girls Club do, when they sign an agreement for the use of the park, there's guidelines in there that they all follow.
Very good. Perfect. Anything else? Okay, at this time, I'll accept the motion.
Do we
Agenda item
need to
number-
take
oh, sorry.
that out, though?
Say again?
How, to reword it? Yeah, we
If
just-
you all want to move to accept.
Well, just-
To accept the resolution as worded, or to move to approve a resolution dedicating the 9.82 acres at Harkins Industrial Park as a community park, sports, recreational field and facilities, that's probably the most appropriate. Because you set out the exact amount, it's the entire acreage of the park, it specifically names the Harkins Industrial Park and says that you're going to use it as a community park, sports, recreational field and facilities. Want me to say it again?
Should we, I'm asking council this now. When making that statement, do we want to actually say community park, sports, recreational fields, facilities? Not the title, but just that, because we're just doing it as recreational fields. We want to be able to, leave the door open for anything that might happen there. Like we said, is hopefully maybe one day, you know, we do music in the park and it's part of a football or soccer program that's out there also. So try to open the door and build something on the east side also.
I suggest leaving sports and youth out, just to
Okay.
keep it open.
All right.
You're talking about City of Alice Recreation Field Complex or Community Park Recreation Field and
Well, just
Facilities?
when doing the full statement of what the intended use, the full statement of use and the statement of name,
Okay.
there's the two eliminated.
Known as, not necessarily name, but known as.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, any other discussion? And again, I just say, you know, that when it comes to the legalities of the leagues and everybody using it and us laying down the rules, that all comes to follow because it's the same basic thing as what they had to do now. So it's just a continuation of it. It's just now we're saying to our community, we plan on keeping it. We plan on doing something with it. And let's just make it happen as a community, like members of the community are already doing for us. So, having said that, I will accept the motion.
Mayor Pro Tem, I make a motion to approve the resolution in support of the proposed dedication of 9.82 acres of Harkins Industrial Park for usage as a community park recreational field known as the City of Alice Recreation Field Complex.
I have a motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion stands as stated, or approved as stated. And thank you, guys.
Sorry to interrupt, Mayor Pro Tem. I
Nope.
just have one thing, that in regards to the motion, is that you all have not named it this evening. Yet there was not a provision.
No, we did not name it, yes.
Did not name it.
We dedicated it as.
You all dedicated it, so that's dedicated use. If you'd like to name it at a later date to see who's out there and whatnot, then you can put it on the agenda and come back.
See, and we can name, we can go as far as the full dedication of the citizens moving forward. If they dedicate fields, we could dedicate specific fields to the individuals. If somebody wants to build a soccer field, if somebody wants to put basketball courts out there, if somebody wants to put an amphitheater, whatever comes from the community, we can name those individually. But the park itself is Harkins Industrial Park. It was donated. I mean, heck, the
Kiwanis Club
Kiwanis.
actually donated the material for the irrigation system in the City of Alice, actually installed it. So that was a pretty big chunk of donation from the Kiwanis Club way back when.
And these are all things that as this park hopefully grows into more than what it is now, we can go back and recognize with some kind of a plaque, do these dedications, because I never knew that the club had donated a substantial amount for the sprinkler systems. Of course, they don't necessarily work right now, but we have somebody donating some time to actually get that working for us out there too. So there's a lot going on out there now, and I think that we have a east side complex now that we can build and develop as a community. So I think it's a good thing. Thank you.
Sounds good.
All right. Moving on to agenda item number 9. Here's status report on June 2018 month-ending financial statements and summary of funds.
Mayor Pro Tem, Roland Ramos, our Director of Finance, is going to present financial statements.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. Ken?
Good evening, sir.
Roland.
Financial statements and summary funds for the months ending June 30th, 2018. If you can give me a minute, let's
No
go ahead and
problem, no
get
problem.
Don't have the paper.
He can use these if you
Use these,
need to.
Roland?
The paper.
Yeah, it's the same one.
On
Okay.
the projector.
Sorry. No, that's okay. I have a copy. I don't know if you have a
Projector.
copy. Mhm. Yeah, but no, he needs the email. That's okay. We'll go back.
Tim,
All
can
of
you-
y'all have a copy of paper. Do you have a paper?
Yeah,
Copy
we all
of
have
this?
the paper copy, and then if anybody wants it, they can request it,
Right.
and we can move forward. So, go ahead, sir.
On the projector.
Okay. Sorry about that.
We're gonna try something new, so bear with us here. I think you can move forward while he
That-
tries this, and we'll just continue, and once he pulls up, we'll go from there.
Mayor Pro Tem, you want to take a recess while he sets this up?
Yeah, let's do that. We've been in here for 2 hours anyway.
Okay. Yeah, it won't take long.
The time is now 8:23, and we'll call for a short recess of about 5 minutes. Let's come back at 8:28, please. We're now at recess.
Mm-hmm.
23.